Okay, then I think it's time. So Niharika, let's begin.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
we are ready. Hold on.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first episode in the Alumnicate webinar on supply chain management conducted by the ECA Association in collaboration with NIT Warangal's Americas Alumni Chapter. I'm Niharika, your host for this evening. We are so glad and delighted to have with us Mr. Balraj sir. Our honorable guest is an electrical engineer who is an alumnus of our very own institute, NIT Warangal, a graduating batch of 1993. He holds an MBA from C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. Apart from that, he holds several IT and professional certifications. Mr. Balraj is a supply chain leader with over 27 years of experience in designing and implementing E2E supply chain solutions and also leveraging several SAP and non-SAP technologies. An SAP expert across multiple industries, Mr. Balraj advises and guides customers on SEM transformation, SEM best practices, and IT solution roadmaps. He has deep knowledge and vast experience in ERP SEM solutions, outsourcing, and manufacturing, supply collaboration with Tier 1 and Tier 2 partners, large-scale IT landscape and architecture transformation. So, welcome, sir. Having you with here this evening is nothing less than a fortune for us. We are really very thankful for you for giving your time for guiding us, sir. So, would you like to address the attendees?
Yeah, thank you very much, Niharika. So, good evening, everyone. So, thank you all for joining. Appreciate the opportunity for me to present today on supply chain management. This has been a passion for me. So, I started off like you all guys at the school, and then grew into this position over the last decade and to a couple of decades. So very happy to first meet you all, and thank you for sacrificing your evening that to on a Saturday evening. I will promise make it a worthwhile time that you spend with me. Also, I'm on LinkedIn and other forums, so please feel free to connect with me, and after this session as well, give me feedback and also try to get in touch with me if required. So just give me a second. I am trying to present my screen and
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
yeah. All right. So I hope Niharika, you can see my screen now, my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Give me a second. I'm trying to go into slide mode.
Yeah, sure, sir.
All right. Okay. So I'm back. Hope you can see my screen now. Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you very much for confirming that. So let me start with my introduction. So I'm very happy to be here, and I think I was introduced. So just to give you part of my education, right? So I was a graduate in '93, like you all, electrical engineering. Just recently celebrated our silver jubilee. So that was a picture that when I was with my friends couple years ago. So we visited the campus around August time, I think in 2018. It's a very happy occasion for us to come. So about 140, 150 of us gathered back. So again, connected back with our school. A very exciting time. From a college standpoint, my background was primarily, I was into organizing several things like you all did. So I was into painting club, I was into our electrical engineering association, all the Spring Spree organizations, organizing committee and various activities. So I was very active in the college. And likewise, currently, not only my work, but I try to spare time for alumni activities in particular. So I serve as an executive member on the NITW Americas alumni and promote our organization. So recently, Professor N.V. Ramanrao, the director of college, and also Professor C.S.R.K. Prasad were in the U.S. and I was happy to take them around to Texas A&M and other schools. Very happy to connect and be of any service to the college. So hope that kind of gives you some to make sure you spare some time back to the college after you graduate. So from an education standpoint, I was like anyone regular student from a remote place within Telangana now. Previously, it was combined Andhra Pradesh high school, and I was a graduate in '93, and I took time to do my MBA. So this is something that we all face a dilemma of when is an MBA useful. So that's a call that you guys have to make in your particular context. There is no straight formula for an MBA. For several of my friends have picked up an MBA immediately after college from an IIM or any other premium school. It is your call. Again, if you think you qualify for an IIM school, maybe it's worth going through that couple years. Otherwise, I personally think about 10 years of industrial experience will add a lot more value when you go back to school. So that is something that you can decide based on your context, your passion. Some of you are very passionate to crack the CAT exam and go into MBA. That is fine too. Or some of you may want to go back to your master's in terms of technology, or that is very important if you intend to specialize in a particular field of industry, then and it's worth it. Also, it gives you exposure to other networks and other technologies. The industry experience will add to your MBA. So if you have about a decade of experience, going back to school, particularly evening school or a work MBA, so this all universities offer you options to pick up an MBA later. This is much more because immediately it adds value to your experience in terms of growth in the current industry, or it might even provide you an option to shift your industry. So I think that's about MBA. So that's my experience. Again, it's not a formula. It's based on your context, your passion, your knowledge. Okay. All right. I would like to now go into the subject. So I have a mix of topics and I try to give you the foundation of supply chain management. It's an ocean. It's a continuous learning process. And for me, it's a lifetime career. And there are several aspects within supply chain. So as you grow passion, I think it provides you a lifetime career. It is something I enjoyed, and it normally doesn't get the type of advertisement that a sales guy gets. Sales and marketing is very much advertised. Manufacturing and production planning is advertised. Design R&D is advertised. But you don't hear much about the supply chain managers or the supply chain leaders, right? So this is not something that is advertised, but it's a very difficult role. you deal with the foundation of the company, the operations of the company across the board. So that's why it's a difficult area. And there are very few supply chain leaders in the world. This is a hot market. We need them. And for example, I'm trying to hire hundreds of supply chain planners and leaders within India for some of our companies, and it is very difficult to find talent even in Bangalore. Our companies come to me and say, I need 10 planners in Bangalore who need to run our business, right? So it is not an IT job. I don't need C double plus programmers, but I need 10 supply chain planners. Can I get them in Bangalore, right? So this is the type of industry you see in India growing now. Is you're beyond all that IT skills. Now you're growing into business. The outsourcing companies are bringing factories into India. So what they need is supply chain management. So I think that is enough of advertisement. So let me go into the next screen. Just a second. So what's happening in the market today? So you see that the supply chain is all over the headlines. The current disruption that you see in the world today, the geopolitical or economic or the the virus that caused this entire disruption. The moment the virus is vaccination is introduced, supply chains have to carry this across the world um, within minutes, sometimes within weeks. And when they do this, they have to make sure that the vaccine is properly protected. It has the necessary cold storage by air or by ship or by whatever means. You have to supply this across the globe. Now that's a huge challenge. Now let's go into other shortages that happen daily in our grocery stores or across the market. For example, United States, there are several shortages. I just picked up one example. There's as simple as a dumbbell. We are not able to get those in the market today. There is toilet paper shortage. There is various shortages. So how do you, as a supply chain manager, work out these events, and how do you make sure that the companies do not suffer during these events, right? So this is very challenging times, and you can see that supply chain is in the middle of these challenging times. And likewise, in US, for example, some of the factories are closing due to the issues within the supply chain, and within the factories there is shortage of resources or shortage of material. The material that needs to come from various countries is not arriving on time, and there is a real shortage there. Electronics is an industry where we have constant shortage of components. For example, there is a spike today due to the COVID situation. There is a spike in the need for devices. So all of you are buying more laptops. All of you need more cell phones. All of you want more iPads. So where do these come from? They need to be predicted, forecasted, and manufactured across the world in some destination and then shipped to your doorstep. And you want this within a week. Sometimes you want this by next day. How can we ship? There's a huge shortage of laptops in India at this moment. How can we predict that spike, and how can we ship them in advance? How can we inform our foundries to manufacture more and more of those devices, right? So all of this is part of supply chain. And if we do not have a working and smoothly running supply chain, the company is going to dry up in terms of revenue and in terms of customers. So if you do not get an HP laptop on the store that you are buying from, you would immediately switch to Dell. Or if you do not get a Dell laptop, you would immediately switch to HP. Or if you are looking for an Apple device, and if you do not find that, you're going to move on to an Android device. So what happens with that? the company is going to lose that customer forever. So this is a huge loss to the company, not only revenue, but a customer loss. How can we stay ahead of this game, and how can we predict, and how can we bring this to the doorsteps on time? That's the foundation of supply chain management. So let's go into, I need to put this slide. This is a classical definition of what is supply chain management. This, as you can see, there is a chain, right? So we are talking about a chain. And this chain in the olden days used to be limited to one company. I'm always producing within my company and I'm selling it to the customer. So this is like that Ford story that you can hear. It's very famous that Henry Ford once said, I can ship a car to a customer as long as it's a black car. That means the company is very much focused within its own boundaries, within its own framework. Whereas over a period of last 10 to 15 years, due to the inflection in the IT technologies, inflection in the customer expectations, there is a change in the model. Now we are talking about supply chains across various companies. What is a chain, right? So it is a chain because the customer is the main focus of a supply chain, and the customer's demand is the one that pulls the chain towards himself. And the entire chain has to act as a very smooth, oiled running machine so that customer gets the particular product or a service on time, right? Um, Again, there are several books which you all should read, even within college. And I have some suggestions around this as a very important concept in terms of supply chain management is that you are looking across various components of your supply chain and making the supply chain run smoothly, be it the customer demand all the way back into your supplier's warehouse, right? Just a quick poll. I don't know if we can do any kind of feedback on this or a question on this. What kind of technologies does supply chain leverage? Is that possible, Niharika, on any feedback mechanism? Questions?
Yes, sir, there is an option to poll. So you have access to that. You can just go and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's proceed. I don't want to waste any time here.
Right, okay.
So the concept of technology is evolving as well. So in '93, if you all remember, prior to '90s, the only technology that was available was this mainframe technology. Even when we were in the college in '93, we had this photon and punch cards, right? They were just getting obsolete in '93. And after that, there was this mainframe technology. And towards 2000, the mainframes gave a huge scare to the world around the Y2K problem. And post 2000, or even starting from '93, the client server technology exploded. It was all about distributed computing. It's no longer about centralized computing within a room. You don't have to go into a room to work on a computer. Rather, you can start working from your PC, and the application technology shifted to your PC, and you're able to operate more. So the laptop devices started exploding from '93 to 2000 timeframe, because now you can start operating from a real PC and get the same experience as going into a lab. After '90s, you started this entire in-memory computing technologies that exploded. So what happened with in-memory computing technology is you could crunch much more data in a very short time. The computing speed exploded. At the same time, the cost of computing diminished. So with that came innovation in the IT space. And so we could crunch much more data. And as we move towards the 2010s, you can see that the cloud technology started exploding. So everything was, can we move from on-premise into the cloud? Can we buy a tool in the SaaS model? So this is software as a service, and there are several of them now being offered in the cloud in the service model. So the concept of computing has been evolving and changing over the last several years. And now we are in the era of talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, in-memory computing. And supply chain is one of the core areas that uses all of these technologies. So there is any new innovation is leveraged by supply chain, and supply chain is constantly pushing also the innovation on the technology to the cutting and leading edge. Right? I want to pause there for a minute because I think so far what I have done is I've introduced what is the supply chain, what is the criticality of supply chain. I want to take now into one core slide, which is very important. So I want you all to concentrate on this. The next slide is about the concept of supply chain. So give me a second. So what is a supply chain, right? So within that factory, we have several components in the supply chain. So let us start from the right. On the right side is a customer. The customer could be you as an individual trying to buy a PC, or the customer could be a large enterprise that is trying to buy 1,000 PCs for its employees, right? So that's your customer. And then there is logistics. Logistics is how do I receive that shipment to an individual customer or to a large factory by air, by road, by sea, whatever that option is. How do I receive it? And what about my warehouses? I cannot ship a PC to a doorstep, let's say in Warangal, unless I ship it in advance into Hyderabad and stock it up in Hyderabad. And from Hyderabad, I'm going to send it by road. So that warehouse in Hyderabad needs to be replenished. And then let's go into the factory. So where is my PC being produced? It is being produced somewhere in China. So this is the factory. So, and then where is that factory getting components from? The components are coming from all over Taiwan, China, and Philippines, and all over that eastern uh, industrial countries where the suppliers reside. So all those suppliers need to produce and ship it to the customer. So essentially, that's the core of the operation until the laptop or the PC reaches you. So how do I operate a company so that I can forecast the true demand? How many PCs do I need for India? And even better is, within India, I might divide India into 4 segments, east, west, south, and north, and see how can I predict that true demand. Where do I get the foundation for true demand? Today, you need 1 million laptops. Last year, we might have sold only 750 million or 750K laptops, right? So where do I get that forecast from? How do I predict the true demand? And then secondly, what pattern has changed, right? So the customer wait for a week for a PC before he flips to another PC or another model, or can he wait for 2 weeks? What is that customer expectation? Nowadays, customer wants it within an hour. He wants it to be drone delivered to his doorstep within the next 1 hour, right? The customer expectations have changed. Instant gratification. You want it online. You want it immediately, right? Virtual. So this is the demand prediction. And what is this concept? This is the concept of demand planning. The the demand planning is one of the areas within supply chain management that provides that function of understanding the customer forecast, understanding the customer demand. Um, the technical skills that are needed for demand planning are the data scientists. You hear this a lot, right? So we last 4 to 5 years, the data scientists have grown. The demand for that has grown because you now have large amounts of data, petabytes of data that is being generated by all these computing methods. Someone has to mine it, understand it, make sense out of it. That is all part of this function called demand planning. And if you're a data scientist, if you're interested in statistics, if you're interested in math, you want to really predict these numbers based on the past history or based on the future demand that you can gather, intelligence that you can gather. This is a great area. So there are concepts like demand sensing, um, all the analytics that goes into demand planning. Now let's go into the next area where inventory planning. Where did you see that there are several areas where we need to stock up inventories? So like the example that I mentioned, you ordered a PC in Warangal, and how can I ship that PC from China to Warangal? I need to stock up inventory as various pockets within the supply chain to make sure that you get the PC next day. I need to stock up inventory in Hyderabad. I need to stock up inventory in China. I need to stock up inventory at my suppliers. Every time I'm stocking up inventory, I'm increasing my expense across the supply chain. So I need to make sure that I only stock inventory that is essential, that is needed, so I can keep the cost low. And this is all part of the inventory management or inventory planning. How can I keep the right material at the right place so that I'm not going into shortages? If I am short of a certain material, I cannot build that material. I cannot get you the PC on time. At the same time, if I stock too much, what if the PC immediately goes out of life cycle? You no longer want to buy Intel 3, Pentium 3 PCs anymore. And if a company has built up too many Pentium 3s, they have to discount them and sell them at loss. So it's going to be a loss. So you need to make sure that you are building enough that you are meeting the customer demand. That is all part of inventory management and inventory planning. How should I also mix my products that the customer is actively buying? Let's go into the supply planning side, right? So what are the suppliers? When I say a supplier, this supplier term is very large, huge, and these suppliers exist across the world. And now we are manufacturing across the world. It could be Mexico, or it could be China, or it could be somewhere in deep pockets of Australia, for example, right? So all of these suppliers, for building a particular PC, you may need to collaborate with about 200 suppliers. How do I get all those components on time so that my PC is built? So that is part of the supply planning. So how can I inform the suppliers? The customer has asked for 1 million PCs in India. How can I inform my suppliers that to build this 1 million PCs, I need 1 million of Intel processors. I need maybe 2 million of hard drives, the Seagate or Hitachi hard drives that go into your PC, right? So all of that information need to be fed into the supply planning side. And let's go into production planning. So once I procure all that raw material, what is the best way to build my PC? How many sub-assemblies should I build? What is the technology? You've studied in books about lean methodologies, just in time, Kanban, all those technologies are leveraged in production planning. How can I build using all of that latest technologies, applying my systems? How can I build this? That is part of production planning. And then, of course, logistics. Once I built my PC, what is the best and economic way of shipping the PC to you? These are razor thin margins. Even if your PC costs 75,000 bucks or 75,000 INR, the cost of the PC itself could scale up to 60,000 INR to the company because of the shipment. That margin is razor thin. Maybe they make 15,000 on a PC, but if I stock up more inventory and if I ship on the most expensive mode, next day out shipment, and if I fly in some of the components because of poor planning, then I end up investing in 70,000 in the PC, and the only profit that the company can make is 5,000 rupees. If you cannot make enough profit, you start making loss, right? That's all part of the logistics planning is how can I make sure I'm shipping, making sure the truckload is full. This is a huge challenge, particularly when you consider global markets. And you're building in China, you're shipping this PC to Warangal. I give example of Warangal. Imagine that I need PCs across the world in various cities. I need a PC in the United States, in every city possible, right? So thousands of millions of PCs. Where can I produce these? How can I ship them on time? So that's all part of the logistics planning. Again, each of these areas is an ocean. Each of these areas takes a lot of expertise so that companies make more and more profit. And every company needs them. And this is something that you guys should think of um, is these terms. And these terms are very important. Okay. One last concept that in terms of supply chain management, you will hear is bullwhip effect. What is a bullwhip, right? So you take a rope and you put some energy into it, swing it. It causes the rope to create ripples. What this concept means is a similar challenge within supply chain management is based on the customer behavior. So what happened this year due to COVID, everybody sat at home and ordered many, many PCs and devices, right? So that's a huge swing in the demand this year. Can I expect the same demand next year? I'm not sure yet. But what happens because we have seen a huge spike this year, immediately the entire supply chain will start planning significant amount of material. They have increased their capacities. They started ordering more material, and suppliers have started stocking up more material. And this causes a slump, potentially a slump next year when customers stop ordering and that inventory piles up. Because the suppliers are hidden from the customer, it's very difficult for them to see what is the demand coming at them. So this is called bullwhip effect, and we have to minimize bullwhip effect across the supply chain so that we reduce inventory holding as well as seamlessly operate. Right? So I think I've introduced these concepts. Again, each one is an ocean. There are several software companies by particular area that operate. So you will start noticing that as you enter the industry, and even if you work in a particular any kind of company, I think you should try and focus. How does the company forecast? How do they get their demand? How does Amazon get the demand? How do they know that 1 million PCs have to be sold in India next year, right? So likewise, how do they plan in the back end and make sure that they are not piling inventory in the warehouses at the same time having many happy customers? It's all part of it. So I wanted to introduce now different supply chains. Now that I have given an introduction of what a supply chain is, let's talk about the supply chains in the market. So I focused on a PC supply chain. The top left, this is a very classic example of a PC supply chain. I'm building many components and assemblies. So you see these several companies that are suppliers here. You know, the Hitachis, the Seagates, the Samsungs, all of these companies across Japan, across China, across Philippines, they're all Taiwan. They're all building various components and required modules that go into electronics, be it a PC, laptop, cell phone, or any other electronic device, a server. All of these are being manufactured here. And these are being then packaged, assembled, and shipped to various locations in the world. Um, we get a flight from Chongqing, China every day, a bulk load of PCs into United States, into Louisville, Kentucky. That's where the warehouse is, the hub is. And from there, the material gets distributed to the consumers overnight, and next day they have a PC. So this is how the supply chain operates. So there is a forecast, there is a demand that has been informed to them. They build the PC and they send it back by air. And this entire thing operates in a 16-week cycle. That means I have to predict my demand 16 weeks ahead to the supplier and say, I need 1 million PCs in that example. Let's say in India, how can I get 1 million PCs in India 16 weeks ahead? And then these guys will build all of that, build the PC and ship it into Singapore. Singapore, I have a huge DC. And from Singapore, I ship it into India. And you have your PC. By the time the 16th week comes, I'm expecting orders to hit me. So somebody is ordering a PC, and I'm expecting that 1 million demand to materialize within that 16 weeks. So this all predicts, and you are playing across the world. So you're running that supply chain. So let's go into Amazon, right? So you can see that in the high-tech industry, you know, computer, semiconductor device, that is high-tech. Let's go into the retail. The retail industry is completely different. This is very interesting that Amazon has got this fulfillment by Amazon. Amazon is offering supply chain as a service. So it is saying, guys, use our supply chain, use our inventory models, use our logistics models. You focus on R&D and you focus on manufacturing and leverage our supply chain to ship it to a customer, right? So that's the model that Amazon is offering. And the retail industry has its own challenges. The Nikes, the Walmarts, they have millions of components or products. You know, like unlike PC, retail has millions of products. They have to make sure the shelf is completely full. Whenever you go to that local warehouse, you're getting the right shampoo that you're looking for. How does Procter and Gamble position its products on the shelves of Walmart? This is a concept that Procter and Gamble invests in supply chain technologies. They constantly innovate in that space so that they can predict the customer demand better and ship the material better. Another interesting example is the food industry, right? So I've captured an example from fisheries. In the US, we go to a store, we buy a packaged container of salmon or a packaged container of crab meat. Where are the crabs caught? They are caught in somewhere in South Pacific or somewhere in the eastern, even if you take an Indian Ocean or wherever that is caught. I want to know the freshness of that produce. Where was it caught? Was it caught in a sustainable ocean, or was it caught in a ocean that is not sustainable environmentally? I want to know the freshness of the produce. When was it caught? Which batch was it graded? All of that data is then published on the label of that container. So the moment I scan, I get to know when was that crab caught and when was it processed through its supply chain all the way into my store in the United States. That's the amount of intelligence that's being built into that particular label on the container. If I'm not happy with where that crab was caught, and I'm not going to buy that container, I'm going to move on, right? So it's very important that these supply chains are using technologies to make sure the moment it lands in the ship, it starts getting tracked. The produce is graded, ABC grading, and then it is then processed in the local warehouse and properly packaged in cold storage facilities and then shipped across various countries into the United States. Supply chain technologies run this. Blockchain is currently the used technology in this concept. There are many such food industries that operate like this. The airline industry is a most complex supply chain. Each aircraft takes about 2 years to build, and the demand has to be predicted at least 3 to 4 years ahead. Now, your time in the PC case, we are predicting about 16 weeks ahead. Now, as we go into the airplanes, we have to predict 2 to 3 years ahead. Can you imagine that COVID would have hit the world and the flights would have been grounded for months 3 years back? No way. So how would you now, many airlines factories tanking, they're showing bankrupt, belly up, they will get sold shortly. And the companies that would have at least reacted in time, responded in time, would survive through this downturn. So what is that called? It's called the supply chain resilience. That's the latest concept. Okay, you cannot predict it, but how would you respond? How would you react in a short time and be able to take that inventory out of your supply chain? Now you cannot sell an aircraft. Nobody is buying aircraft for the next 2 years. But what about all the inventory that you've invested? That's not going to be sold, and you need to keep paying interest on that, and the working capital is going to suck the company out, right? So this is very important. So as the lead time increases, the risk increases, the investment increases, and also the prediction is difficult. Okay. So I wanted to quickly take a minute and ask a question. So what do you guys think of supply chain? Is it just buying? Is it just producing? Or is it just selling? Or is it just shipping? I hope you all understood that it is all of the above. It is not just one function that is part of a supply chain. That's the beauty of this career is you don't like logistics, you can move on to demand planning. You don't like demand planning, you can move on to inventory planning. You don't like inventory planning, you can go on and do R&D. Whatever that is, the focus is customer. How can I sell that beautiful looking PC with the fast computing speed that the customer expects and the ergonomics that go into the computer so that it can be sold on time and the customer is happy about the product that he received, right? So everything goes into that supply chain. And now supply chain, I think, is going to be the number one requirement for any company to survive. All right. So I want to now branch out to a YouTube video. So you've heard enough. I want you to see now a video which I have picked up from the YouTube that gives you the future of supply chain. So I'm going to play it. I hope it plays well. Can you hear the audio? Did you hear the audio?
No, sir. Could you just play it again?
I could not hear the audio. So let me play. And
All right.
You hear me back?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
I don't know how to play with audio, but hope you can watch this video again. Um,
Right.
this is a concept of what is happening, the innovation that's happening. You would have seen drones within that video, the augmented reality and the virtual reality that is being played. So every concept, the 3D printing and all the new technologies that are being innovated are leveraged by supply chains, and that is the future of supply chain is constantly evolving, and there is a there is a greatness to this career is you are dealing with the new technologies all the time. Now that you've known enough of the supply chain, let's go into the systems, right? So what if you want to build a career in a supply chain? You could be into industry working on supply chain, then later on, what if you need to go into a company or a software that you want to explore your career with? There are many softwares in the market. About 20 large vendors operate in supply chain management, and this is called integrated business planning, which includes planning all the way from demand planning to supply planning. And that includes inventory management, the production planning, and all the concepts integrated, well integrated into the software. And as the memory and as the cloud computing technologies and as the demand mining and all the new machine learning and artificial intelligence and all these concepts are leveraged by these companies. They are the leading vendors in the market, be it Kinaxis, SAP, IBP, etc. So what Kinaxis does, for example, is if you say I need 1 million laptops in India, the moment I say 1 million laptops, Kinaxis is immediately computing and saying how many processors that 1 million needs. It's instant computing. So it's going to explode that 1 million into the bill of material that is needed to build that PC and calculate the quantities. Now we are talking about millions of such PCs across the world, right? And the agility and all of these softwares that are there in the market are there. This is a Gartner. Gartner is a consulting firm that grades the softwares and publishes a ranking based on customer inputs and other market feedback. And it's very interesting for you guys to also follow these companies, read about them in the Google or YouTube, understand what do they do, how do they do, and all of them need these engineering capabilities. Again, they have demand in the software side. They need software developers, but at the same time, what if you are a production planner in BHEL? Are you in demand at these companies? Absolutely. After 10 years of your experience, let's say you pick up a lot of that production planning technologies, then you go into these companies, you would be having a much more say in how these softwares need to operate, because they need those business process experts as well, and not just the software coders. So it's all about how you choose what you want to do and then build your career accordingly. There are so many opportunities and so many options available. And these companies are leading companies. You can read them on, on Google. So I want to show you how does one particular company operate. This is called integrated business planning. I'm going to try and do some way to see how to play this. This is, I don't know why the audio is not coming. Just give me a second. This is a demo of SAP IBP software. Um, and I like to have the audio on this. Let me try again. Not good. Okay, but let's go through it. I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense for us to watch that in mute. Um, my apologies. I think there is some way to make it work. I will send this deck out after this session. Please watch it. It's very unfortunate. I would have loved to have you understand what it is. That video will show you what the software does, how does it plan, how does it crunch data, how does it make sure that a large company like Hewlett Packard can ship PCs to you on time, and making sure that the entire supply chain works, or a company like Dell, or a company like Apple. All those companies operate on such softwares. They use different softwares, make sure that they are crunching the data on time and at the speeds that are necessary and the complexities that are necessary. How do you offer a customer a choice to select different processor for his speed and his application, at the same time be able to get the PC on time? You cannot wait more than a week for a PC. So I still need to build the PC on time with all the configuration that you need and then make it at your doorstep. Right? So what is happening in India, right? So I took a stab at what's happening with India. India is exploding. There's from a $3 trillion economy to $5 trillion in the next couple of years. That's the prediction um, from the Invest India source. The population is urbanizing, which means much more sophisticated devices, um, equipment that is necessary to sustain that growth in the urban areas. And likewise, the bandwidth, the speed. India is one of the probably the robust economies in the world that have the bandwidth. You guys can enjoy a streaming movie in a moving train. Very few countries in the world can afford that. Even United States has so many spots that are black spots. They don't have internet connectivity. So imagine that India is such advanced. I'm able to hire a person working from a remote place within Telangana for my company to run a supply chain for a large organization, global organization. That's the level of sophistication that India has reached in terms of IT technologies and bandwidth. That's great news. That helps to explode in one um, vector of the industry. But the other vector of the industry is, do I have enough resources to run such supply chains in India? For example, India is saying, please come and manufacture. Manufacture in India has been a motto for the last 4 or 5 years. So yes, the companies are coming now. You can see that companies, this is a slice of the segment, electronics. These companies are world class. You don't have to get into Australia, United States to work for these companies. Foxconn, for example, massive company in electronics. And I heard that Apple wants to produce its iPhone in India. That's a great leap. But what all skill sets they need? All these companies do not need IT developers. They need supply chain managers. They need leaders who can drive business, who can make sure that their production running smoothly, who can make sure that raw material is landing smoothly, who can make sure that the material is shipped worldwide out of India with the least possible hassle, right? So China, what China did in 2002, 2003 to explode in manufacturing, that's what India is doing now. So we are about a couple of decades behind China. How can we catch up? This is all in you guys. I mean, you are the guys who need to pick up this and drive it. Next 20 years is India's time. You don't need to step out of India if you're trying to build a world-class career. 3 decades ago, yeah, that was the case. We could not build a world-class career. We were very local. But now you're world renowned and world-class. The companies are just shifting to India. It's a nice timing because of various geopolitical conflicts. You guys know that. So it's one of the best times that due to COVID as well. Recently, one of the petrochemical organization from Houston hired 500 resources in Pune to run their supply chain operations. This is the type of jobs that are shifting. Hundreds of jobs in the supply chain space. So look for building a career not just in software but also in other segments. So there's so much opportunity here, right? So I hope we could have a dialogue, but any questions you can shoot me later. But these companies are what I worked with for a couple of decades, and they were all in Japan, Taiwan, China, Philippines. Now I see them in India. It's a very happy moment. Intel is shifting its innovation and operations back office to India, as well as front office. Those days are gone when I want to do just BPO in India. That was just, please process my invoices in India. Now I'm saying I want supply chain planners in Bangalore to run my operations. I want supply chain planners in Hyderabad to run my operation. Amazon setting up massive facilities, not just for running coding and development, but also running their supply chains worldwide. India itself is a huge market. Owing to this trillions of economy growth, I need products and services to be produced and shipped within India, very similar to other advanced countries. How can I make it happen? And I need supply chain managers here. I need supply chain there, right? The Foxconn, these are the guys who build all the servers and the cloud technologies. And you know those Lenovo's, Acer's, and Microsoft's, and Microsoft also has a huge supply chain. The devices, the cloud. How can I operate Microsoft Cloud? I need to produce enough components, electronics to drive the cloud capacity. So the JBIL is a huge organization that runs supply chain as a service in addition to all that manufacturing. NVIDIA, this is a semiconductor industry that just took over Intel in terms of revenue, right? So these are number one or number top 10 or top 100 of Fortune 100 companies that are operating out of India. I mean, you take that and expand it to other segments of be it auto or be it other areas, you see world-class companies around you. So all the best on your career growth, but I see opportunities all around you. How can I build a career in supply chain management? So we talked a lot about supply chain, but you can see that in the planning space, there are so many functional roles that you can play. You can be a planner, master planner, scheduler. How can I do demand planning? Or you can be into this procurement space. Those 200 odd suppliers that I need to pull the material from. Or you can go onto the shop floor, make sure you're running a shop floor with all those new technologies that you've learned, the just-in-times, the Kanbans, etc. Or move into the shipments. You are a great logistics planner. I mean, you want to ship this material worldwide, no more India, just India, but worldwide. What are the technologies that you can adapt so that you can smoothly run that supply chain? And how about the returns? This is a huge space as well, the reverse logistics. Companies spend billions of dollars when this material comes back. How do they deal with that material? How can they make sure that a replacement is provided on time? The customer continues to be happy. You would hear these stories about, oh, I got this equipment and it's not working, and that company is no longer on my list, on my hot list. But if you were serviced well, and if you received a replacement within the next day, you would be one of the happiest customers. How can I make sure that all my products are getting you that level of service? That's part of the reverse logistics, and this is another huge supply chain. This takes an entire lifetime career as well. Each one of these areas you can build your career, or you can rotate from one area to the other, or you can be somebody else beyond this, but understand each of these areas, and you can still build your career. Or you can move into IT, but I would say unless you understand these physically, you are in a shop floor, you are in front of a customer, you are doing procurement, you are talking to a supplier, you are coding, you are buying, you are selling. Unless you understand all of these functions, getting into IT, it's very difficult, it's abstract. Then you are coding, somebody tells you, hey, I need this function, I need to be able to do this and do it for me, I need to break it down. But if you understand or work in an industry, then you have that process knowledge that you exactly know what is the expectation of that business customer, that you can accurately build it the first time and provide a world-class product, right? That's the beauty of having business knowledge behind your IT career. So that's another way of looking at it. Or you can be an ace developer, you are very sharp and you want to do C++ coding or whatever be the latest Python coding that you enjoy doing every minute. It's your hobby. Then why not jump right into your coding career? So it is up to you guys to choose what you want to do. You want to do business process consulting, move into solution building to satisfy a customer, or you want to jump right into an IT job. So that's up to you. So I've chosen my career carefully. When I graduated, the Y2K problem hit the roof. Everybody was jumping onto mainframes. I had to pause and I have to judge myself. Do I want to get into mainframe technology and do this COBOL coding, or shall I continue with my career? And the next slide, I'm going to show what I have done in my planning. And that's another template. This is what I have done. So I started my career with Kirloskar Electric. I'm an electrical engineer. I wanted to do justice, and I wanted to do something that I've learned for 4 years of college. I was not happy with what I've learned. Have I seen enough, right? So I took a job in Kirloskar Electric from campus. Was those days 2 days of interview process. I aced it. I got in there, and that's one best thing I've done because what Kirloskar Electric offered me was happiness and fulfillment that I have learned my electrical engineering. I put my concepts to actual market. And also, while I was there at Kirloskar Electric, um, I I fulfill my role of can I understand the entire factory? And can I understand the entire supply chain? Can I understand the entire customer? So again, like you all guys, what is the best role? Can I? What is the best way to get into industry? There are so many functions. I didn't even know that there's something called marketing, production until fourth year. So then in fourth year, suddenly everybody was asking me, so are you going to marketing or production or R&D or what do you want to do, right? I don't know. So I asked somebody, what is the best way to get into the factory? So do I need to get into the shop floor and I'm stuck for on the shop floor lifetime, or do I need to get into R&D? So one of the advice that I received was get into a customer facing role, get into marketing or sales or whatever. Once you understand the customer, you can connect the dots. That was the advice I received. The next concept was okay, so everybody is moving into IT. Do I need to jump onto IT? Do I need to go do what? Right? So this is the other part of it is that I received is you need to spend at least 3 to 4 years in your first job, 3 to 4 years in your hardware so that you are gathering some mass. Nowadays, I see guys jumping between Infosys, Wipro, TCS within a year. Oh, I work for 4 lakhs per year in Infosys. Next year, Wipro offers me 6 lakhs. The third year, TCS offers me 8 lakhs. Fourth year, I want to go into IBM for 10 lakhs. 4 years gone by, this guy is the most useless guy that I can interview because he has not gathered anything on those 4 years. He has not gathered any kind of mass. So don't be in a rush to skip companies just because somebody is saying, oh, I'm getting another 1 lakh extra. I've seen this attitude in the guys in Bangalore. It's not good for their career, not for India, not for the industry as a whole. You need to build some mass. You need to get some quality into yourself. Don't be in a rush to make money. That's not the whole goal of your life, right? That's foundational. So I spent 5 years with Kirloskar Electric. All around me, people were jumping 3x, 5x, 6x salaries into software, but I stuck to my guns. I did marketing and I spent my time in Bangalore. I spent my time in Hyderabad. I did marketing for 4.5 years. And I know that's a 7.5 kc4 or 5.5 squirrel cage motor that runs many vanilla applications, right? So I've sold motors, I've sold AC machines, DC machines, generators, and I've done application study at a paper factory, at a steel factory, at a mining factory. And I went back into the factory and gave customer requirements for LT motors, HT motors, gate motors. And everything I've studied for 4 years, I applied. And also more. The first year that I went from electrical engineering to the factory, the first 1 month at Kirloskar, they asked me to open a motor and fix it back. It took me 1 day for opening a 1 horsepower motor and fixing it back. But that knowledge of that 1 day fulfilled my 4 years of study. Immediately, I realized what it takes to assemble a motor, disassemble it, what are the components, what is the difference between a squirrel cage and a wound motor. So this is something that I fed back into our college. Can I open up my machines in the college? There are some issues, but that's a type of knowledge that you have to build in your 4 years. It's not just uh, going into a lab, taking some readings, not knowing what's happening behind the scene. Whereas if you go into a factory, you're doing the hard work, and that's what I learned there. Again, that's something I want to instill in you is Nothing wrong going into telcos and the sales and the BHLs. Spend your time every minute learning what the company does end to end. That all the way from customer. How is the customer ordering that machine to all the way to that backplate? How can that backplate be manufactured by a supplier to the quality that is needed? If the backplate is not good, it's going to break within a day, within 2 days of operation, and that motor is going to come back as a return. How can you make sure that the per unit current that passed? Of course, then I started my SAP career, which is an ERP system, and I enjoyed MBA type of studies. I read many books. Then I said, okay, let me choose SAP as my career path. It came along, nice timing, and I joined HCL Infosystems after some hard work. I took a break. I quit the job. That's the other concept is when to take the risk, when not to take the risk. Sometimes you have to judge yourself. So I quit the job. There was a risk that I'm losing my career, but then I had this opportunity at HCL Infosystems. And since then, it was a massive shift in my career path. Then I joined Satyam. I built practice, SAP practice at Satyam, world-class company, Satyam. Unfortunate, but that put Hyderabad on the map. Enjoyed both work at HCL and Satyam. And I started my United States career around with Compaq in 2000. Spent about 18 years with Compaq, Hewlett Packard, and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. That's my middle overs. That's my core where I built my supply chain knowledge. I ran their supply chains worldwide. How can I collect demand for all my PCs, all kinds of printers? How do they run the shipments? Where can I get the raw material? How can I ship it to the worldwide customer base within these systems that meet the business needs? Today, I am part of advisory teams for those supply chain organizations, various high-tech companies, and make sure that how to manage and run seamlessly across the company. After working for so long, this is the other decision I made was I worked in $150 billion organization for 15 plus years. I've done that, and I felt I need to jump down into a startup. So SCM Accelerators was a startup, 25 people. I wanted to learn the basic concepts of a startup, a Bay Area-based supply chain organization. I joined them, and then I'm back at UST Global, which is heading their supply chain practice. So this has been my journey. It's a template. Again, no formula. It's just how you judge your time, how you play your time. Start with something that teaches you a foundation. You join a company that gives you basic principles, not just a company that offers you a FT pay packet, right? So these companies, those are classic companies like ITCs, the Kirloskars, the Tatas, Mahindras. They instill in you some basics of how to get discipline into your business. Something that at Kirloskar happened was the training manager was an ex-wing commander from the army. So we got some army principles. Show up in the morning with well-shaved, well-dressed, well-polished shoe. 8 a.m. 8 a.m. is 8 a.m., not 8:05 a.m. or 8:10 a.m. 8 a.m. is 8 a.m. How can I get that discipline into myself? I mean, those are the type of skills that they teach you, and that will run your life, right? So try to learn those skills as soon as you get out of college. Like anybody else, I've read a ton of business books, fiction, whatever, but these are the books that moved me and influenced me in my life. Who moved my very simple book. If you've not read, just buy it. It's just 60, 70 pages, but beautiful concepts, and apply that to your life. Every day, think about it. Every week, think about it. have is my cheese moving or I'm a sitting duck, right? There are four characters in that book that talk about survival, and the goal is the foundation for supply chain. It's something called theory of constraints. The author introduces that book is like a novel, fiction novel. Read it through, but the concepts, drum buffer rope, and constraint management, how does supply chain operate? It's foundation of supply chain. Reengineering the corporation. There was an inflection point in 93 when Reengineering the Corporation book came in. All businesses understood that they are just focused internally. They need to focus across the board. They need to remove all those non-value added activities. So what it caused the corporations is jump and start implementing ERP technologies. So it was an inflection point in 93, and this book caused a huge revolution in the companies. Very important. Read that book, apply it to yourself between your 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. How many non-value added activities you have in your schedule? Remove those. You start applying it to yourself, and that's how you apply all these books is to your own personal life, not just to the business, but your personal life. Of course, the rest of it is the 7 Habits, fundamental. Read it. Um, for me, Rahul Dravid has given a role model, and that is something. He's like an average Joe. He's not the talented, most talented guy on the earth, right? So he's not a Sehwag. He's not a brilliant Dhoni, but he's a guy who works within his constraints. All of us are like that. We are not brilliant guys straight off the bat, right? If you're great talent, I mean, go for it. You may be talented, then that's great. But what if you're struggling within your constraints? You have some issues. You have all of us are built like that. It's not like everybody is an expert on everything. So Dravid gives me that framework. How do I build my career? How do I build my starting overs, middle overs, and how do I explode in the end? It's a 50-over match or a 5-day test. It's not a 2020 match. Your career is not a 2020. So imagine this a long-term play. Play it carefully, smoothly, then you would succeed. By the time you get to your 50-year mark, it flies. But by the time you get there, you need to step back and see, have I done well in my career? Have I done like Raul Dravid? Or I was out in the first over, right? So this is something, even if you're out, you can restart and do it. It's nothing like long-term career planning. You need to learn from various characters that you see. The other influential person is Warren Buffett. Again, not just picture for the sake of picture, but if you watch his interviews or if you read about his life, he has built a financial discipline into himself and into the company that he operates. One of the richest men on the earth. Again, you need, in addition to all of these, you also need the financial discipline. So I look forward to his teachings when it comes to my financial discipline. How do I plan my finances? If you do not invest early enough, if you don't invest those 10 rupees in, learn about investing in stocks, learn about investing in real estate, learn about investing. This is something that you have to start early because you will run out of time by the time you get, you will see a huge expense in front of you, but you have not saved enough. How do I start early? Because that compounds over a period of time. That's the concept that Warren Buffett teaches. You need to build it back, right? So that's my template. Again, this is what I enjoyed, and I continue my rest of my life in supply chain management. Again, that gave me a lot of field to play. It's a huge field. It's not small. It's massive. Opportunities are worldwide, right? So that's about it, guys. Thank you very much for spending time with me. I hope I gave enough in the hour 20 minutes. Like to take some questions, rest of the 10
Yes, sir.
minutes, and any
Yeah.
feedback I would like to have, and we can always connect offline as well. Okay. So open.
Right. Yes, sir. So I'll just relay the questions which have been asked by a few of our attendees.
Mhm.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So our first question is from Skan Gupta. He's from Metallurgy, and his question goes like, okay, a lot of Indian startups and startups abroad have tried to enter the hyperlocal delivery segment and have mostly not succeeded because of the challenges in the supply chain segment in the industry. What could be the ways in which supply chain management in the hyperlocal delivery industry be optimized to cater at delivery from procurement to the last mile?
Can you repeat that word? Sorry, I did not get that. What is that? Hyper local?
Hyperlocal, hyperlocal delivery segment. All right, I'll just repeat the gist of the question. So, Skand wants to ask what are some of the ways in which supply chain management in the hyperlocal delivery industry could be optimized to cater to
Can
delivery
you spell
from
that?
procurement to the last
Can
mile.
you can you
Sorry.
spell that dialogy? I didn't get that. Hyper local. What is the
Hyperlocal delivery segment, sir.
what is that spell? Can you spell that dialogy? I'm not getting that pronounced. Uh,
Hyperlocal delivery. So,
so spell that last
delivery.
word. What is that word? Can you spell it? Uh,
Delivery.
deliver
Delivery. Yes, sir.
delivery. Okay, okay. Hyper local delivery. Hyper local. I need to understand that term a little more, but what I understood is you have a supply chain, your startup, but you do not know how to deliver the product across the world, right? That is what it is. Um, you need a supply chain concept. You need that's exactly the case. You need to understand how to run your supply chain. This is a very good question. What if you're a startup? I have a beautiful concept. I can produce it, but I do not know how to send it across the oceans or how to send it across various customer segments. That is the foundation of supply chain. Obviously, when you start a startup, you need to have um, all the concepts baked into your startup. Supply chain is absolutely the foremost. If you are, particularly if you are producing a physical good, if you're building an IT product, that's a different supply chain. Even within IT products, you have a supply chain, but it's a different supply chain versus hardware or a material. Then you understand thoroughly deep into that supply chain. Else, yeah, you have a concept and it doesn't go out of your factory or out of your own or on doorsteps, right? So yeah, it comes with forecasting, understanding your market. How much do I need to invest overall to produce thousands of my products? And then where is my market? And that's part of supply chain. Do I sell it to cities? Do I sell it to regions, local? That's you need to have a market, and then you need to have a strategy around production. You know, what if the scale of production is high? I need to be able to immediately produce thousands of these products. Then how can I get capital for this investment? Or can I rent space and produce it? All these concepts are part of supply chain. Again, I'm not sure I got the question right, but would be great if we can touch base offline. I can see how I can respond. Okay. The next question.
Yes, sir. The next question is by Skand again. So he further asks, lesser inventory is always a pressure. It is always something that is looked up to in a supply chain management ecosystem. What are the non-FMCG industries can adopt or already have adopted such SMC models like Asian Paints? What do they have that helps with reducing the inventory-based pressure?
So reducing inventory is not necessarily the goal of supply chain management. I would say optimal inventory is the goal of supply chain management. Optimal inventory takes into account if you cut too much of inventory down, then you are running into shortages. That's not necessarily the goal of it. There is a concept of inventory cycles. Um, the faster your cycle runs, the more number of cycles you have, the better is your inventory management. So this concept runs across various concepts of inventory, not just reduction in inventory. Uh, for example, there is something called supply chain KPI or key performance indicator. So inventory also has a key performance indicator. So every company tries to measure the key performance indicator. How many cycles of inventory do I have? What is the level of working capital that I'm investing? What are the amount of shortages I have? So all of these key performance indicators are measured across an year and published to the management. And nowadays it's a real-time measurement to understand how I'm performing across the board. That is then taken into account for the following year, how to improve on it. So that's how every company does it. FMCG or all these companies have different KPIs and they benchmark themselves against the world-class competitors and make sure that they are improving in their supply chain management. Okay, so key takeaway is KPIs, key performance indicators. That gives them a measure of how they are performing. It's not about inventory reduction. It's about optimal inventory, and that's the key. So if you buy too much inventory, your working capital gets locked in there and your inventory gets obsolete, and then you are writing away the inventory. But if you keep very low inventory, then you are not able to meet your customer demands and you're constantly running out of material. So both are not good. So you need to run an optimal supply chain. So you have barely enough inventory to meet all your demands and not stocking over. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. We have a few more questions. Um,
Okay.
a lot of companies, especially in the B2B and manufacturing segment, face challenges with inventory management when the cost of material is highly volatile. Apart
Yeah.
from reducing the cash conversion cycles, what are the ways in which these industries can hedge the inventory costs involved?
Okay. Great advanced question. Um, every company has this challenge, and every company deals with this problem, particularly when you said highly volatile pricing of these raw material. That is driven by lack of predictability around it. So normally, how we do with it is we we have to have the ability to forecast in advance. So when I take, let's say, Hewlett Packard, which buys billions of dollars of inventory from suppliers, we go to Intel with an yearly demand picture and we negotiate with Intel, right? So you need to reduce that volatility by being able to predict your demand and being able to negotiate with your supplier and then further improving your collaboration with the supplier. So you are constantly forecasting. So if I say I need 2 million processors for the next 6 months, then I negotiate a price for those 2 million processors, and that price stands for next 6 months. But what if my demand is actually 4 million and not 2 million? Then I lose the game because then the balance of 2 million, Intel is going to charge me a market price. So they will, yeah, I'm exceeding what I've predicted. So likewise, what if I do not buy 2 million? Next year comes, Intel is going to say, you've told me you'll buy 2 million, but you ended up only buying 1,500 or 1.5 million. So what you need to now pay me is more because I lost about 0.5 million sale as a result of you not actually buying something. So it is part of this cycle and this careful tap dance with your suppliers in terms of keeping that volatility low, constantly looking for new and alternate suppliers. Instead of buying that excess demand from Intel, maybe I can buy that from AMD, baking that resilience into your supply chain, balancing it carefully. I mean, these are very basic common sense factors, but industries struggle when it comes to massive amounts of quantities that they need to buy to fulfill massive amounts of demand across the world, right? I hope I answered that. I think this is again a concept of supplier collaboration. That's where it plays into is how can I predict, how can I carefully manage and massage my pricing. There are softwares in this space, cloud. There is a software called Ariba from SAP. There is a software called E2Open. There are other softwares which allow this online collaboration with partners and supply chains so that you are able to predict, share your demand, get the pricing, pick up alternate suppliers, and make sure that you have supply chain resilience. So that way you can respond and react faster at still at a lower price than paying through your nose. Yep. Next.
Yes, sir. Right. So we have one final question for you.
Uh-huh.
What is your opinion on incorporating artificial intelligence and automating the management sector of the corporate world completely? Is it even a possibility?
So artificial intelligence into management of a corporate world. That's a huge leap. Um, so let me give you what I've learned over the years, right? The corporate world is interesting. I'm thinking of, let's say, $1 billion company, not just a mom and pop store, right? So if you're running a mom and pop store, it's just a completely different story. What happens in $1 billion company at the management layer? Um, can that company be run by machines? That's kind of what I understood the question, right? So what happens at that level in the corporate segment is if you break it down into systems, essentially they are looking at their balance sheet, their figures. There are games available in this management layer. You can play those games. I don't know if you can buy them. Is you're running a company that produces widgets and you're running $1 billion company, but suddenly demand is falling. So what should I be doing? So the game tells you that you have options. You can increase your R&D spend so you can produce better products. You can hire more sales guys so then they can sell them faster. Or you can invest in your people so you have more happier and pleasant workforce that can instill much more confidence in the market, right? This is just an example of a game. What is the CEO doing, right? He's playing this game. He is looking at all these numbers and he's making decisions. He's saying, guys, he calls his board of directors and tells them, guys, you see this year's balance sheet. I'm losing revenue here, here, here. I'm having problem here, here, here. If you break it down into a puzzle like that, obviously artificial intelligence or machine learning, what does machine learning do? It can read the patterns. You need to teach the machine learning system, right? So you need to feed all those use cases. What did 100 other companies do in this scenario? All that, if you feed, the machine will learn itself, and then it can take a superior decision. It can possibly bring much more intelligence into this. I think it is feasible. I think it is going to happen in future. May not be that the system can still run it and make decisions, but somebody at the top is gonna communicate that to the world, and that top guy needs to be the CEO of the board of the company. You still need a face, an inspirational face for the company as a human being, human touch. But I'm sure the systems are already running most of the decision making in the background. We are talking about a lot of systems that we call them as decision support systems. These are analytics which gather all this data and crunch that and produce certain KPIs or numbers that then the CEO would look at and make a call. Whether his call is good or bad, um, that is based on his experience. Whereas if you have a machine that can be fed all the use cases for the last 50 years, machine probably could make a better call. So I think it's feasible. I just broke it down for you guys, but I'm sure it's going to happen. It's already happening, and the scale of this may increase, accelerate.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule to, address us and provide us with such in-depth understanding of supply chain industry. You also provided us with really great examples which helped us understand the concepts way easily. You've also, I'm very sure you've also motivated all of us non-coders, a lot of us from metallurgy, to prove our metal in a world which is hell bent on coding for a living. It was really unfortunate that we couldn't watch the videos as we planned, but I assure you that we will send the deck of links to all the attendees. And lastly, on behalf of the EC Association, I would like to thank you and America's alumni chapter once again for giving us this exposure to the real world. Thank you so much, sir.
That's great. Thank you, guys. I'll send this to Manthan afterwards. Yep. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, sir.